Hello and welcome. Welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. Hello, my friends. I am so happy to be here with you today. Welcome to this incredible episode of the Business of Happiness podcast, a podcast exclusively for women dentists. And happy summer. We had a fabulous party at our house yesterday here. Finally, it feels like summer in Maine. It took us long enough. And we invited some new families over who I hadn't really had a chance to sit and connect with or really got to know them on a deeper level. And they were asking very generously about the work that I do. I don't know if you're this way, but whenever I go to parties, I try not to talk about work. I want to discover people's hobbies and learn more about them. And I never ask them about what they do for work, but very often it's a question that's asked of me. And I was explaining a little bit of the work that I do and the people that I serve. And the same question comes out every time. When I tell somebody I coach women dentists on leadership and on navigating their stress and their overwhelm. And they say, oh, it's so interesting. I didn't realize dentists were so stressed out. And I give them some of the statistics of, how we have such an enormous amount of stress and depression in dentistry relative to other professions within healthcare. And they say, oh, isn't that so interesting? I wonder why that is. And they start asking me questions. And I tell them about how since the pandemic, there have been so many hygienists leaving and there's a shortage on team members and it's stressful with the insurance companies and not making enough money to pay the bills and feeling the endless grind of the schedule and having patients say to you, I hate being here. And I talk about all of that building and building up. And for every example I gave, this person I was talking to said, oh, but that happens in this industry, and surely that happens in medicine, and I can see how that happens in other industries as well. And that's when I explained the one thing that so many of us seem to miss in dentistry, that none of these external circumstances are actually the reason that you're feeling stressed out. The stress you're drowning from isn't coming from your practice. It's coming from the meaning you've attached to everything that's happening. It's not your practice. It's the pattern. And if you're sitting there thinking, this is crazy, Tarryn, I work for a jerk, or the insurance companies have narrowed my ability to charge what I need to charge to such an extent that it's creating so much stress, or I'm so limited number of team members there are willing to work, or the lack of hygienists. If you've ever thought about leaving dentistry, if you've ever thought about selling your practice, worried that it's the stress of dentistry and knowing that if you step away, or feeling like if you step away, you'll finally be able to breathe, then this episode is for you. Because I once believed that selling my practice would solve everything. I thought that removing the source of the stress was the solution. But what I learned and what I've discovered over and over and over and over with the clients that I serve, it's not the practice, it's the pattern. And the pattern follows you. Many years ago, in my first practice ownership, so I've owned several practices over the years, and in my first practice ownership, that was really my greatest learning because I was so overwhelmed. I was so depressed and I was running on empty all the time, just trying to keep my head above water. And I sold my practice out of desperation. I thought I've got to get rid of this source because what I was noticing, guys, and I get so emotional when I think about this, is that everything around me was crumbling. My health was crumbling. I was young. I was so young. I was in my early 30s. And my health was being so neglected. I was struggling with migraines. I had too much weight on my body. I was constantly in pain, my neck, my shoulders, my elbow. I would get sick at the drop of a hat. And my family was struggling. My marriage was on the rocks. My kids were sick all the time. I was always feeling guilty about, just getting them to bed as quickly as I could at the end of the day and never actually spending time with them. I was missing all the morning muffins with mom at their preschool and missing important occasions in my family. I missed weddings of my cousins, and I missed a funeral, and all in the name of just keeping this practice going. And I was so stressed out. And there was a day when I realized, oh my gosh, I cannot keep going this way. If I could just get out, I'll finally be okay again. And that's what I did. It took me a good 5 years to get the practice to a place to sell. And I walked away. I fire saled it. I sold it for as little as I possibly could just to pay the bills, just to pay the loans. And for a moment, there was silence. But the stress didn't just stay behind the dental chair. It came with me. Everywhere I went, that same stress came. I went on to move to a different state, and I opened a dental school in Maine, and it was the first dental school in northern New England. I was one of the first 4 founding members of the school, and that same stress followed me, and I started to realize it had never been the patience. It had never been the practice ownership. It had never been about the numbers. What was following me in terms of stress was not anything outside of me. It was what I was making those events mean about me. If a patient canceled or several patients canceled and I had an afternoon open, I made that mean that I was a failure. If a team member left or gave her notice and another one hot on her heels, I made that mean that I wasn't a good enough leader, and that made me not good enough because I was trying so damn hard to be a good leader. I was taking all the courses. I was trying communication courses and leadership courses left, right, and center. And every time something outside of me gave me evidence that I was falling apart or not succeeding according to some algorithm that was never mine, I told myself I wasn't good enough. If we had a down month, oh my gosh, I remember Februaries were the worst. And it was every February. It was predictable, but every February I would tell myself, I'm not good enough, I'm failing. If the numbers weren't quite high enough, I'd tell myself I was failing. The practice wasn't the chain. The chain was invisible, but it was wrapped around my sense of self-worth. And until I broke that pattern, no amount of escape could set me free. So I'd love for you to hear this today. If you've been thinking about leaving dentistry or running away from your practice, and I just want to give you this awareness. Maybe you need to run away. Maybe you're in a profession that's not bringing you any joy. Maybe selling the practice will give you some resolve. But leaving dentistry, selling the practice won't suddenly get rid of all the stress. Not if you're still carrying the belief that you are the problem, because that belief will just attach to whatever comes next. Maybe it'll attach to your relationship. Maybe it'll attach to your friendships. Maybe it'll attach to your body, the way you see yourself when you look in the mirror. Maybe it'll attach to a new job, a new schedule, another responsibility that you'll be running towards just to prove your worth. Because the pattern says, unless everything goes my way, there's something wrong with me. And here's the freedom I want you to receive from this, is that you are not your numbers. You are not your schedule. You are not the patient's choice to say yes or no to your treatment plan. You are not the number of seats you fill this week or the production you make. You are not your team retention rate. You are not the problem. And when you begin to see that invisible chain for what it is, that it's just a belief system, not a truth, you start to unlock the power of setting yourself free from that invisible chain. And the very first step is to call it out, is to recognize, oh my gosh, I am coming home so stressed right now because I have a pile of unfinished paperwork on my desk. I have a huge amount of unfinished chart notes left on my desk, and I am feeling the stress of it as I'm driving home tonight. and recognize what you're making that mean. It's not the unfinished chart notes that's causing you stress. It's what you're making it mean about you. When you're missing your kid's performance because you couldn't possibly imagine counseling 40 patients that day, it's not the predicament that you've put yourself in of having to choose between disappointing 24 patients or your daughter. It's what you're making it mean about you. See, everything comes down to our beliefs, and nothing outside of you can make you feel a damn thing. Nothing. I want you to think back for a moment to a time, maybe you can remember one, when someone tried to insult you or make you feel bad. Or how about I throw one at you right now? What if I said, you have the weirdest purple horns? They're really weird. Instantly, I know as you're driving or listening to this episode, you're thinking, what, did she just say purple horns? That doesn't even attach to me. What is she even talking about, right? It doesn't attach to you because it doesn't connect to a belief. You have no connection to purple horns and making you feel anything, be it beautiful, strong, worthy, intelligent, not enough, slow, not good enough. It doesn't mean anything to you. So it doesn't stick. It doesn't cause you stress. Nothing anybody says or does or any event or any external circumstance could ever make you feel a thing unless you make it mean something about you. So I invite you for a moment to just think about the thing that you're most stressed about. And maybe it's something personal, because this isn't unique to dentistry. And please hear that. It is not unique to dentistry. And we sometimes create excuses or scapegoats out of the thing. And yes, there are so many opportunities for stressors to come about in dentistry for so many reasons that we talk about on this podcast. But notice that it's not the thing that is the stress inducer. It's what you're making it mean. And oh my gosh, what liberation does that offer? Because all a belief is a thought you keep thinking. And we get to change our beliefs around ourselves by thinking a new thought. And I know that sounds oversimplified, and to an extent it is. It's so simple, but it isn't easy. Actually, at this point, I think this is a really great time to just remind you, if you haven't yet downloaded the Morning Drive, this is a part of what the Morning Drive instills, is a new way of thinking as a woman in dentistry. So the Morning Drive, by the way, go to getthemorningdrive.com. It's free. It's a 10-day audio series. If you love this podcast, you're going to love this 10-day audio series because it's just a snippet. It's just a 10-minute snippet on your drive to work in the morning, and it helps you think differently so that you can believe differently and release that invisible chain around your sense of self-worth. And I know this to be true because if you didn't attach a sense of your own self-worth or enoughness or meaning to yourself, it wouldn't be a stress. It would just drip right off of you like water off a duck's back. But because it holds a resonance to your sense of worth, because it tells you that you're not good enough if that happens. Maybe it's telling you, I'm not a good enough leader. I'm not a good enough dentist. I'm not a good enough mom. Whatever that is, I invite you to uncover that. Because the moment you find that belief, now we can start working with something and realize the belief is a choice. The belief is a choice. And I know that feels uncomfortable to hear right now. But I promise you, the moment you give yourself that permission, you start to set yourself free. I'm going to leave a link in the show notes to the Morning Drive. But like I said, you can get it at getthemorningdrive.com, completely free, no strings attached, because you deserve to see the power within you. You deserve to realize that you are so much more than your white coat. You are so much more than your patient acceptance rate. You are so much more than the income you pay yourself or that you receive. and that you are so capable of navigating these everyday occurrences that mean nothing, that right now you are telling yourself means something about you. And if nobody's told you this today, please hear this. You are doing important work in this world. You are doing such incredible work, literally putting smiles on children's faces on a daily basis. And I thank you for that. And we need you for that. If you're a business owner, you are creating jobs for other, mostly women. And I just want to thank you for that. We need you for that. And we need you to feel good about yourself. Because when you feel good, that is when you can do good. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Business of Happiness podcast. If this episode brought you new perspective and value, I invite you to subscribe so that you catch all upcoming episodes and leave us a review. And if you know of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this perspective, share this episode with them and empower their day. For more information about the Business of Happiness and the Radical Happiness for Practitioners course, find me on www.thebizofhappiness.com. See you there.